Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Formula, and we're live ahead of qualifying for the Dutch Grand Prix, and we have one of our biggest decisions of the year coming right out of the break. Zach and Terry, there's a lot to consider here. Do we go with Aston Martin? Do we pivot into the four-tier lineup with Mercedes, or do we stick with Old Faithful and Ferrari? It's going to be a tough hour.
Yep.
I've left them speechless. Fantastic. All right. So just to dive into this a little bit more, Aston Martin absolutely flying through the first few free practice sessions, a little bit on the back foot in free practice 3 through some events that we'll talk about in just a moment. And of course, McLaren looking fantastic. Lando, Oscar, the clear 1 and 2. And so an Aston Martin team does allow us to get a piece of that McLaren triple up. So this is going to be probably the busiest hour we've had in a while, and definitely one of the most stressful too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it leaves a lot for debate, doesn't it? And still no clear, apart from obviously, I think McLaren, let's be honest, I think it'll take something monumental to knock off their performance so far this weekend. But we did see it was at Bahrain where we had this, didn't we, in free practice, where they absolutely stormed to the top and then kind of disappeared for qualifying in the race. So, but I think they're definitely a team to beat, aren't they? Look at it. No one's been close to them all weekend. But as for the rest, you can flip a coin.
Yeah, I still really don't know where my head is at with all of them. I just, like I was saying, I just wish it was slightly easier. Like Antonelli could just put a lap together, or the Astons were slightly faster in FP3. If one of those was happening, easy peasy. It's just the way that no one looks better than anyone else. So who'd you put in the second constructor? I ain't got a clue.
Let's pull up these free practice times. I just want to walk through FP3 because for those of you in North and South America that might have missed the early start, there were some things you might have missed in the session. So Lando Norris made it 3 for 3, fastest in all 3 free practice sessions. It was absolutely bombing. A shocker from Carlos Sainz up to P4, so gives Williams a little bit of hope. You can see his teammate Alex Albon also finishing in the top 10. Now, looking at some of our friends here in Aston Martin, Lance Stroll continues to beat in that bottom third of the top 10, giving you some hope that he's in for a good weekend. And then Fernando Alonso was on a flying lap, took the final corner, found George Russell in front of him. They had a couple of dance moves back and forth, and ultimately Alonso ducked into the pits, junked the lap, and then went right back out. So this is his fastest lap on a used set of softs that he might have scrubbed a little bit while applying the brakes to avoid the contact with Russell. So they said on the broadcast, it sounds like Alonso has a little bit more in him than the P10 we see here. And then you've got to come all the way down for some of our friends in the other constructors. Lewis Hamilton went off once in one of his flying laps, never quite put it together in his second. Meanwhile, Kimi Antonelli was on a decent lap, not fast enough to crack the top 10, but he was impeded as he was coming up to the checkered flag and had to apply the brake. So he was a little bit lower than perhaps his pace really indicated. Terry, is there anything you see here, particularly as we look at Alonso, Hamilton, and Antonelli, what's really going to determine which one of our constructors we pick this week? Which of these free practice results stands out to you the most?
This is a tough one because I think we were just saying before we hit the live button, wasn't it? There seems to be one good in all of these constructors. You know, Mercedes, George, Leclerc seems more comfortable again than Lewis with Ferrari. It feels like if you were picking them individually, you wouldn't kind of be having much of a debate on some of these. But picking them as a team, I mean, Lewis has spun pretty much every single session, hasn't he, this weekend in that Ferrari? If I remember rightly, I'm sure he has. Antonelli's had an off in FP1. Obviously, that ended early. FP2 almost lost it again, but was lucky to contain it. So doesn't kind of fill you that confidence, especially if we get a bit of a damp track, a bit of a turn in the weather. We've seen what the rookies are like in the rain, and that's no disrespect to the rookies. It feels like as soon as the rain hits, obviously we know there's naturally a lot tougher to drive on, and it feels like that does affect the rookies quite a bit more. This track is unforgiving on that. It's old school circuit. If you go off here, you're not getting back into the race, are you? There's not big runoffs. There's not big, a mistake in you out, aren't you? So, yeah, I'm not seeing enough in the other teams to make me go, I want to go Mercedes or I want to go Ferrari. I do feel that you're either going to do it and they're going to find something in their setup and it's going to be an absolutely monumental masterstroke, or, like you say, we pivot away and take the triple McLaren, to be honest.
Zach, I want to turn it over to you because, to be fair, I can't get into a McLaren, Mercedes, Piastri, Russell team without really having a tough situation. Taking a -10, I'd have to bring in Colapinto. It's just not happening for me. But for you, you do have a clear
Yeah.
path to that Mercedes and the 4 Tier A build, but you're also looking at Aston too. How close is that battle for you right now?
It's ridiculously close, and it all comes down to safety or risking it for that chocolate biscuit. I will say, to Beast's question, I would wild card 100%. Don't take a -10 or -20.
Yeah.
And it's just because at the end of the day, you're correct. When I can happily sit this weekend and go Piastri 2 times, Russell with Alonso, Lawson, Bortoletto, McLaren, Mercedes. That team will do completely fine. Even if Mercedes aren't completely on it with Antonelli, it would probably be fine. You know, you come into Monza, you're sitting pretty there, but there's nothing throwing me towards the team. There's no Norris, who looks really good right now for 2 times. There's no Aston, who look, to put it simply, on par with Mercedes, Ferrari, that lot for points. So then it comes down to, well, hang on a second. I can still afford to have Norris, Piastri, Alonso, Lawson, Bortoletto. So budget building's actually completely fine with McLaren and Aston. And then we get to a situation where, let's say Norris does win the race. He gets fastest lap. With that 2 times, that is so many more points. And it's such a risky play. I know it's riskier than just sitting there and going, I can do this. I should just do this. But that's why Aston's in my head, because I want to risk it. I really do. But then even heading into Monza, where do you go from the McLaren Astons from Monza? I would have to then use Russell and Mercedes. And I feel like at that point, it's Monza, the only track I feel comfortable putting Ferrari in my team fully. So, yeah, it's not even just about this weekend. It's where do we go from Monza, which Aston is a real struggle when we do that.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely a no-brainer to get Aston out of your team because Ferrari do tend to bring some extra tricks for their home track. So that makes a lot of sense. And I just want to pull on a point you made earlier, Zach, about Lando potentially getting some bonuses for driver of the day or for fastest lap. The latest FP3 sims, I can come over to it now. They came out just before we came on here. 36.4 points expected for Norris. That's effectively P1 in qualifying and winning the Grand Prix with an overtake. It doesn't even assume if Norris gets one of those bonuses too. So this lineup appears to be slightly ahead of some of the others in points, but if he gets those multipliers ×2 of those bonuses, it could be an even better lineup. This is around the point while we try to assemble our thoughts of which team we're going to make sense of here. This is usually where we remind you, make sure you like the video. Harry's going to hold all of your lineups hostage until we get that certain number of likes that'll unlock it for us. I know a lot of you have some big questions this week. I see a lot of our friends in the chat. Hi, Matt. Hi, Rebecca.
I'd like to stress as well, for at the start of the live stream, I put up a nice little poll of who will everyone's second constructor be? And this also brings into a situation where, like, we keep calling Aston Martin the differential. I don't think it is anymore. From looking at the poll, we've had 87 votes so far. Aston's on 50% of people's teams. Ferrari's 30%, and Mercedes is only 20%. So right now, Aston's looking like it's potentially the build everyone's going for. So then what is the differential? The 4A build?
It could be. It really could be. And it takes a few extra bucks to make a triple McLaren, triple Aston Martin build work. I think it's 125 million just to get a seat at the table for that. So that could help some of us that are trying to dive back into the top 5,000. And some of those teams that reported back to us over the break, they have lower budgets and aren't sure if they're going to hold on to their higher rank. So this is the play that could get us back in the mix.
I have just seen a message from Jan that, Adam, I feel like you'd quite enjoy. Autopilot this week with Piastri and Norris, ?
If this is what I do, I think I'm going to use the autopilot as well. And hear me out on this. At this point, autopilot usually doesn't move the 2x boost, at least in the last 3 seasons for my team. If you have the 2 title contenders going head to head in this race, I think this gives you the best chance of having that 2x boost move. I know for my team, I can't quite reach a Norris, Piastri, McLaren, Mercedes build until maybe at best Vegas or Qatar at the very end of the season. So I don't think I'm going to have anything shy of Piastri or Russell for the rest of the year. And what are the odds that George Russell dethrones Oscar Piastri for the 2x boost? So for me, if I go with that triple McLaren, triple Aston Martin build, I'm going to use the autopilot. All right. Marco asks Aston or Williams. Now, that wasn't much of a question until free practice 3, where we saw Carlos and Alex really up there in the top 10. For me, I don't quite trust Williams yet, because this was a bit of an explosion into the top 10. And I hadn't seen many signs either through betting lines or through simulations that Williams are quite on it this week. Terry, do you agree?
Yeah, I think the problem is we're seeing in the comments there, a triple Aston feels risky, but then a double Williams feels risky as well all season. We've had one or the other, haven't we, with Williams, where one driver firmly gets in the points, the other one tends to be nowhere near the points as such. So I think, again, it keeps going back to this constructor of the individual driver conversation, doesn't it? Do I think a Williams will crack the top 10? Potentially, yes. Can I see both Williams in Q3 and then producing, both a good points finish on Sunday? It would be a gamble. It would be a stretch, to be honest, seeing what we got. But then where on earth are Ferrari and Mercedes in all this mix?
There's no room.
Just where, I mean, you expect, the problem is you expect one of them to come back with something good, don't you? You expect one of them to actually, work overnight and come back with something in free practice to give you something to kind of go. But if you look at how many setups Ferrari went through in free practice 3 as well, they changed wings, they changed setups. They clearly don't know what they want and what they need, because of the fact they were sending the drivers back out, the feedback the drivers were getting and given. They clearly have no clear set path on this is what we're going to bring to the track. So whatever they come up with for qualifying is going to be a roll of the dice based on what they've got, not based off a clear, we think this is going to work for us. Yeah, so, yeah.
Ferrari are worrisome right now, absolutely. And
absolutely.
There's a great question from Rebecca in the chat here. If you don't have wild card or 3 free transfers in Monza, does that make Aston unrealistic this weekend? Could you put Norris in instead of Piastri for this week if you're confident-ish that you can pivot to the 4A build next week?
I would say yes, but to that question, I'd say how do you do it? How do you pivot to that? Is there a world where you can pivot from having Norris without taking a negative?
I don't think so. Now, for me in my budget, the lineup that would have that is McLaren, Ferrari, Norris, Alonso, Stroll, Bortoletto, Lawson. It would take 2 transfers to get there. The same 2 transfers I'd use to get into the McLaren, Aston Martin, Norris build. And it's roughly the same points as if I just kept McLaren, Ferrari, Piastri, and then a bunch of strong B-tier drivers. So I don't think there's a way to do it in one move, because Norris is 5 million more than Piastri. You're probably not sitting on that. So you'd have to use 2 transfers.
Well, this is the scary thing as well, because we've been getting a lot of comments coming through about taking negative hits as well, because it's so hard to figure out whether you should take a -10 or not. And I think the gist of it is, if you're sitting on a team like around 150 million, that's got like Piastri, McLaren, Ferrari, then I could see why a -10 would look okay, because then you'd go from all the way from that to then Piastri, Norris, McLaren, Aston. I could see where that would work out. But like, let's say you had a 4A build before, or you had one of the high-end Piastri builds. I don't think the -10 would be worth it at that point. But then also you get into the point where it's not gonna just be a -10 this weekend. So like, when did a -10 stop? Because if you take a -10 to get to the triple McLaren route now, you'd then probably have to take a -10 to get off of it in Monza, and then that's -20. And if you told me this weekend, oh, should I take a -20 to go for it? I'd be like, absolutely not.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Zach, is if you need a -10 now, you probably need a -10 for Monza, and that's where I draw the line. One -10, I think when you have some high stakes gains at the table here, potentially like we talked about with triple McLaren, triple Aston Martin, I'd do it. But just fast forward ahead to Monza and what your options are based on your budget, because you may be stuck taking it twice, and then at that point it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Got a lot of great questions in the chat here. I don't
There's
even know where to
loads, and I
start.
was just looking.
Is there anyone that stands out to you, Terry?
I think the Aston Martin seems to be the most common question, which I genuinely don't think anyone can answer, because it kind of feels like Lance Stroll's got that question mark, hasn't he? We've seen Lance push some great performances in the wet, haven't we? But then we also saw what happened in free practice yesterday with Lance, where he had the commentator's curse from Formula One, wasn't it? Where he put the nice picture of Lance was here in FP1, what could he do now? And then ended up in the barrier.
Immediately in the bottom.
You know, but I don't know. I mean, to get a triple McLaren, I'm pretty much in a triple Aston Martin as well. Is the other route into it? Do I trust that? No. But do I think that the upside of having a triple McLaren, and then obviously, like you say, Adam, with the autopilot, it kind of feels that's the right build to go for. In terms of pivoting out, yes, I would have burned my free transfers. I've got 3 free transfers this week, so I can get into it quite easy. Getting out of it, I suppose I would just drop potentially one of the McLaren drivers and then obviously Aston Martin off and do it that way. So I don't know. But I'm not too sure where I should go with it. I mean, looking at the Sims, some of the other ones have got a very big drop in everything else if you don't go for it. To which I'm kind of looking at, massively lower points and massively lower budget. So it's like...
But that's where I sort of see where, like, on your situation, I think that's fine. If you're only taking if you've had to take a -10 in Monza, but like the triple McLaren Aston way works, that's completely fine. That is 100% fine. It's not ideal, but it still works. And I bring that up also because Michael's put a great question in of saying, thinking ahead, who to avoid for Monza. Well, that's the thing. Who are we avoiding? Probably Aston Martin.
That's right.
Or are we? Because what on earth is going on with Aston Martin? I mean, this is classic Aston Martin once again, isn't it? Adrian apparently is having nothing to do with the car. I don't believe that for 1 minute. I mean, come on, who are they trying to convince? The FIA, cost cap adjudicators quite clearly. Because something's happened with that Aston Martin since the introduction of that new front wing. Something is clearly going on with that Aston Martin. Now, not in any way suggesting it's untoward or illegal or anything bonkers like that. But clearly they've unlocked something with a very simple floor front wing upgrade, which should probably come from that sketch Adrian Newey did of the McLaren on the grid a few months back once he started with Aston Martin going back to Monaco. But it just seems crazy to see the turnaround. They're probably one of the only teams. But then we saw this with Sauber, didn't we? Once Sauber unlocked something, they seem to have found that step in gain. I can't. Was it Leapfrog? I think he might be in the comments. He said something about using Sauber as a differential in the constructors as well. And then you kind of go, actually,
it's not a crazy idea.
It's not a crazy idea. I mean, it's as crazy as going triple Aston Martin. Really? I mean, we're sat here going, we're just going triple Aston Martin. Is it as crazy as that? To put Sauber, who've been point scoring quite well, Bortoletto's looking confident again, looking good again. Hulkenberg is Mr. Consistent, isn't he, in terms of his performance? Actually, throw it into the mix.
Now, my Diet Coke of differentials is if I ran Alonso in the Aston Martin constructor, and if you get a little bit nervous about the double exposure to Stroll, pivot to Hulkenberg. So you get a little bit of, if Sauber are coming up from the back, if they have a differential strategy, if Stroll bends it, you minimize the damage. That's another element of this I'm looking into. But guys, I want to look at one of the other big headlines going into the week, and that is the weather. I've been updating this forecast every few hours since Thursday, and it continues to shift. Right now, at the start of the race, there's no rain. But this is a coastal track. You could have rain just coming and going as it pleases. So it should be dry, but also it could rain too.
Yeah, and I think for me, if you look at overnight rain, that's going to be key because there is a very big lack of support races here as well, which means track evolution, tyre grip, all of those things are going to go into the mix there as well. So if you get that overnight rain, there's not a lot of rubber to be laid down before the cars come back, so it only needs slightly damp or anything like that. And Yeah, you've got probably. I think you've only got what Porsche Super Cup and
F1 Academy.
F1 Academy, isn't it? If I remember rightly, there's certainly no F2, F3 here. So, and we saw in free practice 3, didn't we? How much the track actually evolves up, doesn't it? You know, once it gets a bit of rubber on it, a bit of heat. Yeah, the evolutions there's absolutely crazy.
The faster times were definitely pumping in an FP3 as that track evolved. So something to keep an eye on, and potentially in reverse if it rains and washes some of that out come tomorrow morning. One last thing I want to share before we start thinking about likes and some lineups here. Looking at the latest betting lines from BetMGM, Norris, this is one of his biggest leads over Piastri we've seen all season. So for those of you wondering who to put the 2x boost on, I think it's got to be Norris here. Alonso slipping a little bit since FP2, but I like that he's pretty much in a deadlock with Charles Leclerc, not too far away from George Russell. Lance Stroll in the mix, somewhere around P7, P8. Dangerously close to Lewis Hamilton, too. So it goes to show you that there's a clear top 2, Verstappen and Russell probably competing for that last podium spot. And then all bets are off between Ferrari and Aston Martin for how the top 10 is going to round out.
Should we just say Max is going to win? For right spanner.
This is that part of the show where you would probably say that.
Max wins and gets driver of the day and absolutely messes everybody's build up.
That'd be typical.
Decides to sit that Red Bull right in the middle of 2 McLarens in qualifying and really throw it to the wind.
Terry, how are our legs looking right now?
I can't see. What are they on?
I can tell you.
Have we got more than 10?
They are on. Oh, yeah. Last time I checked, it was
11.
42. And now it is 47. So almost at the 50 mark. Well, we always go for 100 on these streams, don't we?
We're limping out of the break. I think everybody's just tuning into F1 for the first time in a month, like in this hour. So I can see where they're coming from. What do you think, Terry? Should we hold out for 3 more, or should we?
Nah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right.
Let's do it. Oh, congratulations. That was every lineup. Well done.
Let's go with LH Ferrari. Definitely not a week for LH or Ferrari. You could see here, this is a triple Aston Martin with Piastri and Russell. We've got a little Carlos Sainz action with Piastri and Russell, and then Piastri with a couple of price floor drivers and Mercedes.
Ooh.
So it's basically George Russell and Aston versus Mercedes, and then some details in between.
Would that middle one be better if you did a triple McLaren and got rid of Sainz?
I don't know if you can quite reach it because Sainz now, he's come all the way down. He was at 13 million to start the year, but he's so cheap. I don't think we can. Russell plus Sainz would get you to Norris.
What was? Does anyone know what LH Ferrari was on at the start? Because I really think even getting rid of Alonso to free up that money to get in Norris with McLaren and Aston is the way to go. If that is doable, if not, I would say Sainz has been looking good. I'd say the middle one's my favorite.
Yeah, if you got to go with any of those, I'd say the middle one.
It's actually a clean sweep. I would go with the middle one too. So there we go. All right, our friend Race Maven, would you do something other than potentially this? Thoughts on Norris, Behrman, Lawson, Alonso, McLaren, Mercedes, chips, or maybe go Max and Piastri?
Ooh.
See, this is one of these lineups which I quite enjoy, where it's sort of gone like, the budget's not really. I mean, I might be wrong here, but I'm assuming with this team, it's like the budget's not fully there. So you've had to work around and figure out how you're going to score some points. And I like that. I like having Norris as the 2 times this weekend. I do think it is a good move. I don't like Behrman and Colapinto, though.
Yeah, there's a point where, especially Behrman coming off of the DNF, his price is going to go down. Colapinto, I don't think I've ever felt quite right about. He's never scored more than 6, I believe, fantasy points since he's rejoined the grid. So pretty low upside driver there. So I'd switch him out for Bortoletto. With Behrman, you could go with Sainz or someone different there.
Quickly, just on Rick's team again, he said he ran the numbers. He can do triple McLaren with bottom 3 drivers, though. So I think that would mean Colapinto. Is it still worth it? I think. No. But
3 with
So I'm
All
assuming that'd be
three
Lawson,
4.5
Bortoletto,
million, right?
Colapinto.
Yeah, I think that's where Rick's at. He's got to go with all three of the bottom drivers to get it.
I feel like this now comes down to how confident are we on the Norris 2 times? Because that's the gist of it. Would the Norris 2 times cover the difference between Alonso and Russell, and basically Norris soloing? Because Colapinto's probably going to get negative points.
For me, I would probably stop short of Colapinto, but the Norris temptation is real there for sure. All right, here is Jan Mar sitting at 126.8 million with 3 transfers. So good budget, 3 free transfers. OG team is pretty much what a lot of us had last week, but with Behrman. So took the DNF.
I had the Behrman
targeting one more week to go for budget or go straight for points now.
I think you still do both. I'm still looking at both. A bit of a nice budget game and points.
It's not crazy. The middle team's not even crazy for budget, because you could have potentially Alonso, Bortoletto, and Aston Martin up 0.6 million. You're getting plenty of points out of triple McLaren.
Yeah, this is literally almost identical to the position I'm in at the minute. Between the middle and the right team. So I think right now I would have to say the middle team, just because that's where I'm looking towards. But it's so close. It is ridiculously close.
I'm voting the middle one, but it is not a big margin.
Would you go Hulkenberg over Stroll if you could? Stroll's predicted to get more, isn't he? But
see, I would play it even safer and sack both of them off and go Bortoletto. Oh no, Bortoletto was already in. Sack them both off and go Lawson in the middle. Yeah.
The only reason I'm saying that is because that I think is a realistic sort of thing. Because the Sims would say you put Stroll in for the budget game, wouldn't they, over Hulkenberg? But then in your head you kind of go, is Hulkenberg the safer bet than a triple Aston Martin?
In my mind, for a matter of 3 or 4 points, I think it is safer compared to the devastation. Even if Stroll doesn't do anything wrong, someone just runs into him or something. I think that could be really bad. So I actually like the team that it said a moment ago. With
my bad, yeah, Jan's just put Lawson would be a -10, so that makes sense.
Oh yeah, then stick with Bortoletto, yeah, because he had him the previous week. All right, PWR Charlie also has the 4A build as an option this week, but would need Colapinto. Do anything for love, but I won't do that. Give me the middle team.
He's always lurking. Colapinto.
Give it one more week. You run that middle team, you get 0.6 million out of potentially 4 drivers now. Bortoletto, Alonso, Lawson, Aston Martin. I think do better than that for next week.
Yeah, again, I think I'm going middle team. I would prefer the 2 times on Norris, but again, just when I say middle team, just keep an eye on what you can do for Monza, because again, like, I'm in a lucky enough position to, if everything goes right this weekend, or just like basic, I can still escape the Aston builds, not taking a negative hit. If you can take no negatives going into Monza with these sorts of builds, if it goes all right, because obviously there's stuff you can't prepare for, then I'd say, okay, it's fine. It is fine.
I like it. Here's our friend Mia. 10.7 million budget left on the first team. Struggling to figure out who's in that last slot. Second team has 4.8 million left. Or should I switch from Mercedes to Aston so I can afford A-tier drivers? Ooh, that's the question of the hour, isn't it? Sure is.
All right. If we kept it simple and like just worked through it, the first team, the person to put in there would be, if you want the safest asset to go up. And to be fair, the one who's looked pretty decent would be Sainz. I think we agreed on that other slide. So we prefer Hulkenberg over Stroll. So then it would be, if you want then to go above Sainz, it'd be Hulkenberg. But again, it's one of those things where I think if you can switch to a McLaren Aston build with Piastri and Norris, that's probably going to score more than the generic Piastri McLaren Mercedes teams. Because like if I'm looking at Piastri, Russell, McLaren, Mercedes teams, I'm thinking I'm not going to be outscoring Aston teams. I think these teams would definitely not outscore it.
Agreed on all of that. So if you were to stick with the team on the right, I'd upgrade Sainz to the likes of a Hulkenberg, or if a Stroll, if you really want to get a big piece of Aston Martin. But really the key there is going to be the constructor. Hopefully they get both drivers into Q3, get us a nice big bonus. They have an extra set of race tires that Ruth Buscombe reported during FP3, so hopefully that will set them up in a good position for tomorrow as well.
I'd like to put on the poll as well. We got 115 votes, and it is pretty a clear-cut winner. I haven't seen it this clear-cut for a while. Norris with 74% of on the poll to Piastri's 26% on who will score more points in F1 Fantasy this weekend.
Guys,
That's
I'll
a
give
big difference.
I want to give you an option for our next steps here. I can keep going on some of these user-submitted lineups, or I can show you the lineup that I just locked.
Oh, let's see it because it might answer some questions.
Would you like a little?
I want to see it because I still haven't done mine yet.
No, I've got 2 stats here.
It is that thing I've been thinking about since last night, and I'm doing it. Triple McLaren, double Aston Martin, keeping Hulkenberg in for Lance Stroll, Liam Lawson for the price gain. I like Bortoletto more, but I'm not going to take a -10 just for that little switch. It's a team that is consistently, if I come back over to F1 Fantasy Tools, consistently toward the top of the top post FP3 sim lineups. Something that I'm feeling good about. I really want that piece of Norris. Now the autopilot's on, so don't pay too much attention to the 2x on Piastri. It's me putting a little good vibes in the world that the autopilot will actually work. Also, the last time I ran Norris on my team was, I believe it was Canada, the one time all season where he didn't finish in the top 4. So it's also just me covering my tracks.
Oh, it's so tempting. It's so tempting, that team. I'm literally hovering over the confirm changes button, and I just don't know whether
now that I've stunned the group, I'll jump back over to Paul Lev. Unsure how to improve this. Oh boy. So Piastri, McLaren, Sauber. So you're in it for some price gains. Double Haas and Liam Lawson. Let's come back over here. See if we can get you right.
Just to answer Jan's question, you had Liam Lawson, didn't you, Adam? Just very quickly.
I did have Liam Lawson.
Yeah. So I think that's what Jan was. I think was it a -10 if you took Lawson out to get to Bortoletto?
Yes. In a perfect world, this team has Bortoletto on it, but not for a -10.
It's right. I thought that. I just literally sort of caught Jan's one there, and I thought that was the reason behind it.
I think what you could do here, because the budget works, you could get into both Aston Martins here. That's one way you could do it. I would obviously avoid Behrman. The DNF, he's just going to lose value this week. You could upgrade Sauber to Aston Martin if you believe in a little of that magic. We have last year's champion in the chat, Leapsfrog. He's going with McLaren Sauber and then just polishing things up and through here. So that's totally fine too.
Yeah.
So for me, I would probably just move into Aston Martin assets here. You're going to have potentially 4 drivers and a constructor going up in value, and then that'll set you up for slightly more budget into Monza. All right, King Ace. Not sure which way to go and if to use autopilot this week. Spoiler alert, I used autopilot this week. But just to be clear, I would use it on a triple McLaren team, not a Piastri Russell team.
Absolutely. Right, I can concentrate now because I locked mine in. Right.
Ooh. We're going to go over to Terry in just a moment here. See if we can totally peer pressure Zach into a triple McLaren. Why do I get the sense I'm going to go to Terry's team and Max Verstappen's going to be staring at me? Just outrageous.
With the 3 times on Max. No, it's not.
Exactly.
That's better. So, Bradley, I'll definitely go for Alonso over Stroll. Just around. I know Zach. I think Zach answered that one as well, but absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, don't let FP3 fool you. Alonso ran into some traffic at the end of what would have been a really good lap.
Yeah.
I think for me, of course I'm biased now because I just locked in this team here on the left, so I prefer it. I think the team on the right, like you said, is going to be better long term, but it might not even be the better team for Monza, depending on how Ferrari turns up. So you could start here move back to a team with Ferrari, and then move into here, 3-4 races down the line and still be fine. Zach is despondent.
No,
in the middle of your
Norris, like, I can't understate enough just how Norris can't be making any mistakes this weekend. All of the chips look like they're going on Norris. He better not do anything crazy.
Chris, you're absolutely right. Zach is on a bit. Just lock it in, Zach. You'll feel the pressure relieved.
I'm still hovering over it.
I think we're going to fit Zach for a blood pressure cuff moving forward. Yeah. We'll make that a premium feature.
It's just such a big decision. This is such a make or break one, because if Aston doesn't work out this weekend, this is also Monza on the back foot as well. It's so important to get this right, but also I don't like playing it safe. I don't like just going, I'm going to do Piastri, Russell, McLaren, Mercedes, just because it's the safe option that helps me in Monza. I want to risk it. I really do.
I don't think Mercedes has shown us that that's the safe option.
Yeah, true.
That's what I was going to say. I think, and part of why I like the team on the left is it becomes so safe because of Lando that he can really cover a lot of the gap between the likes of Aston Martin and Mercedes. You can see in the latest sims, the gulf is only 9 points. If that's to come true, the bar is very low for Lando compared to Russell. Where the heck am I? Lando compared to Russell to make that team worth it. I think I get the sense of where Terry's going with this, but let's see what Terry has locked in. Ooh, samesies for Terry. He's got Bortoletto over Lawson, which means Lawson's going into the wall for me tomorrow.
To be fair, I had Behrman in there, so I could have gone with.
You had the flexibility.
Well, I also could have kept Stroll. Actually, I brought Bortoletto in. I could have kept Stroll and kind of rolled a transfer, but I kind of decided to swap it over, and not put everything in the Aston Martin. When, if I'm honest, it was an option to just roll. I could have just put Lance in, brought in Lando, and actually brought in Aston Martin and done it on the two. But I kind of felt like I wanted Hulkenberg and Bortoletto's price rise in there. And I didn't want to drop Hulkenberg for Stroll because that was a choice I had, to be honest.
Hakon wants to know, Terry, why Hulk over Stroll? You and I both made this decision. And for me, it's just a matter of the risk profile of Stroll.
Yeah.
If he has an incident like you had in FP2, again, it's going to hit you times 2 because we have the constructor. Hulkenberg, if it rains, is equally great in the wet conditions. We heard from Bleepsfrog earlier, too, the potential of if Sauber start at the back, they have a differential strategy, or there's just enough rain for them to move up in the grid. Their scoring potential is just a little bit higher, whereas Stroll could find himself starting and finishing between P7 and P9. And in F1 fantasy circles, that's not a high score.
Yeah, no, exactly. I just think experience. Look at Hulkenberg's performance in Silverstone as well, in those kind of mixed bags as well. For me, it's just a safer bet than having Lance in there. Lance just, I think FP2 just showed me. I mean, the only reason I've gone for Aston Martin is to bring in Lando, if I'm honest. So, I wouldn't have put that much in faith in both Aston Martin drivers finishing. So that's the reason. Purely experience. Purely, I think that in the wet as well, Hulkenberg's got a good chance to get some good points in there, and then over Stroll.
And then Lucas also asked in the chat, is autopilot really that worth it? Not to get all Yoda on you, Lucas, but is autopilot ever worth it? Yeah, you have to find a situation where there's a likelihood where the 2x boost will move off of someone. Yes, if you use autopilot at Silverstone, it would have moved to Nico Hulkenberg, but how would you have planned that? So it's not often that Terry and I will have this sort of scenario where the 1 and 2 drivers are going head to head. So for me, it was worth a shout.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Oscar's as far as where people are making it out to be. Lando's been on the pace and Lando's been dominant, but I don't think Oscar is a million miles away. And I think if there's a mistake in qualifying, something where you see in the traffic around this circuit, if someone's lap gets wrecked in qualifying and suddenly Oscar puts it on pole above Lando because Lando's been compromised somewhere, and then Papaya rules comes into play, actually, which way do you swing on that one? So I think for me, you got 2 clear drivers, 2 clear. Where would I put my 2x? I genuinely don't know between those two. If I'm honest, I would place on either. So actually, it makes sense to use it on this one, and I'm not too sure where else you would use it. apart from having the clear cut. So it's not, I don't think it's the most powerful chip that we have in terms of what it can do. So it's more of a case of, I expect one of the two McLarens to be the top one. So by playing it, at least I'm making sure I back those points, if I'm honest. Famous last words. Let's take each other out turn one now.
But with the autopilot, that means the 2x boost will go to
absolutely. It goes to Fernando storming through.
That would be so funny if that happens.
Big brains.
Yeah. Use autopilot and Hulkenberg ends at the top scorer again. But like I say, Silverstone had it. So, I think it's one of those, isn't it? I'm not too sure, like Adam said, I'm not too sure where else I would use it. So that's playing a part in it.
Lannister, I can say I've done a little bit of a selfish poll here, and I've asked who's the better asset out of Bortoletto and Stroll, because that's where I'm down to at the minute. And I don't know. I don't know whether to keep Stroll or go to Bortoletto.
So from a points perspective, it's possibly Stroll, but then Bortoletto almost a lock for 0.6 million.
Yeah,
for bigger.
And also realistically, that would be what my extra transfer would be going on. Probably anyway, him or Hadjar coming into Monza, so it's not too much of a difference. Everyone's asking where my team is. I still.
Zach, I'll give you a little breathing room. I'll come back into the lineups for a moment. And remember too, we just announced this week we've launched memberships on the FanAmp YouTube channel. I think right now memberships are only available through the PC version of YouTube and not on the app. But it's a great way to support the channel. And we're going to start getting some ways where your lineups are submitted through your membership and get to the front of the list when we go live here too. So there's going to start being some great ways where you can take advantage of the memberships too. All right. We've got Jorge here looking to have Russell Ferrari next weekend. Thoughts? So this is a very similar team to what a lot of us had coming into the week. I think maybe with Hulkenberg over one of the price floor drivers. You can tell, I mean, based on Terry and I and some of what Zach said so far, we prefer an Aston Martin team where you can bulk up one of those drivers into another tier A asset and get some of that Aston Martin benefit. But if you have a lower budget, you already want to set the table to have Ferrari here. Also depends if you have 2 free transfers. If you have 2 instead of 3, you want Ferrari already on your team for Monza, then it's just a matter of shuffling here. Initially, I like it because you have potentially 4 drivers that go up in value. Ferrari's already on your team for Monza. I'd say if you're over 125 or so million where you can get into the triple McLaren, triple Aston, I'd do it, but this team's probably a little bit short of it.
It's a tough one because everyone's banking on Ferrari obviously coming back from Monza, but there's no guarantee, of course. Yeah, McLaren's strong all season. So whilst everyone's got this in the back of their mind, going, I'm going to pivot out of McLaren into some Ferrari, special, Monza edition that we're most likely going to see. Like I said, Ferrari like to bring upgrades from Monza. They like to bring their track-specific low drag wing, and they like to try and win, obviously, their home Grand Prix. But there's no guarantee that with the Ferrari we've got, that's going to happen. So that's the other factor that I've kind of had at the back of my mind. It's not, it's for me, it's not all logical that Ferrari are going to be on the pace next weekend as well, or next race weekend, I should say.
Oh, Mason's asked, why is no one talking about Carlos at the minute? I think it's more just because
where he is budget-wise.
Yeah, budget-wise, and also like last race weekend, people had Alonso, and realistically, this weekend it's basically Alonso versus Sainz on where they would fit in your team. So a lot of the time, there's a lot more important transfers to make over, and so it's sort of that position we're all in. That's why I don't think Sainz really gets brought up a lot.
Oh. Rick's just become a member as well. Look at that. That green thing that's gone on.
I know a bright green banner just flashed across all of our screens. So welcome aboard, Rick, and thank you. That's fantastic.
Wow,
Zach, just to double click on the point you made a moment ago, because so many of us didn't have signs last week, we're probably using our transfers to triple up on Aston Martin, get into Lando Norris. So signs on merit. Lots of good reasons to have him this week. You can see projected points probably in the mix with a lot of these B tier drivers, but he's also one of our top drivers to gain some value this week. It looks like the latest sims are a little less kind to him, but if he scores positive points, he's probably in for some points here. And based on the latest free practice results, P4, obviously his best result of the weekend so far. All good opportunities for Carlos.
I can say I've logged in my team.
Well, without further ado, let's see what we're looking at here. Oh gosh, what have we done? There we go. The caption says it all.
I don't need to explain anything this weekend. Everyone knows what I've been
Zach
going
is
through.
in. All right,
Listen,
so it is.
yeah.
It is across the board triple McLaren, and now you've got that subtle difference between the three of us. Zach and I have Liam Lawson. Zach and Terry have Bortoletto. Terry and I have Hulkenberg. So 2 of us will be screaming for happy reasons. 2 of us will be screaming for sad reasons, no matter what happens here. So
Yeah,
awesome play here, Zach.
I'm thinking about it more, and I have faith in my boy Fernando Alonso. If he just doesn't crash out, then I just go Norris to Russell, Aston to Mercedes, and then just hope for the best that they're on par with Ferrari in Monza, and then we're back to the usual teams, and I don't have to stress anymore. Or worst case scenario, like we said, I take a -10. It's not the end of the world.
Guys, question from Rick now is going back to this differential of Sauber. Is Sauber worth it over Aston Martin if that means you get Sainz over Colapinto?
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I need a little reference material back here.
Yes. I'm not seeing anything at all from Alpine that fills me with a lot of confidence, if I'm honest. From anything, from the team, from the drivers, definitely. I saw one about 3x. We discussed this before the break, didn't we? So your 3x is better off on a sprint weekend because you get more points. So simple answer to that one is try and keep it for a sprint weekend rather than this one.
I'm going to stir the pot. I'm going to stir the pot a little bit. I think it's better to stick with Aston Martin and Colapinto and just keep your fingers crossed.
Ooh.
Now, if you've been paying attention for the last 45 minutes, I'm not a big Colapinto fan, but I really think Aston have it this weekend. And so I'm making this assumption based on it being dry during the Grand Prix, which may or may not happen. But if it's dry, I think on a low overtake circuit, Sauber are going to find their place in the bottom of the grid and struggle to get up. Aston Martin are going to find their place at the top and not have too many opportunities to go down. And the expected points you see here will play out. Aston Martin at 31 and Sauber all the way down under 10.
When I was in the chat, autopilot, Adam and I have both used autopilot, so you could take that as advice or take it as a entirely up to you. But we've definitely used it, so I don't think you used that, did you? You've kept yours.
No, I'm pretty confident with Norris taking the win here. So it's one of those tracks where like I came in thinking last year Norris looked fantastic here. Nothing shown me in practice that Piastri's had anything on Norris yet. So if we get it all depends. If it does rain, maybe I was a little bit too nonchalant with it. But yeah, I'm pretty confident with it. I'll just use it another time.
Quick shameless plug too is the 3 of us talked about the second half and broke down every chip and which race to use every chip. So be sure to check that out here on the FanAmp YouTube channel because we have some alternatives for autopilot that I think you really like if you're holding on to it.
I'd like to mention as well something we actually haven't brought up is the mini league, because obviously we've been talking about our main teams, but for everyone out there, just make sure if you've got a team 2 or team 3, get into that £2,000 mini league, put on either Limitless or extra DRS, and just hope for the best.
Check it all on, yeah.
Very interesting here because they didn't announce a second chance league, the full last 10 races of the year league. So it's only going to be these 1 and 2 race mini leagues that we're looking forward to for the rest of the year. So I would say if you've been saving up that cash from the first half of the season to dominate the second half leagues, differential play this week's probably the 3x boost with triple McLaren. Because I think you're going to have a lot of teams slap on Limitless, pick the 5 best drivers and 2 best constructors and hope that they can ride it out into a tie. But then in ties, it's a random draw on who wins. So triple McLaren could get you that differential. Rebecca wants us to go through a few more lineups. Sure, Rebecca. I could run through a few. This one's from Jay Champion. This one is... It's the Zach conundrum.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're a bit divided on this. Zach's looking for the extra cash and went with the 2 price floor drivers. Terry and I went with I went with Hulkenberg, and Terry, did you get Stroll?
No, I swapped Stroll for Hulkenberg, actually. I actually made a conscious
Okay,
swap.
so Terry and I both went with Hulkenberg here. So actually, none of us have Lance as a driver. So I guess we'd lean toward
Yeah.
team number one on the left. Also, Lando is the 2X versus Oscar for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say left, but that's because I've gone that way as well. But also, I mean, I guess it's more because, yeah, I want the cash around for Monza, just in case I do have to take a -10 and proper move around the team. But also, I don't really see the difference between, for this one, it'd be Bortoletto over, this one, it'd be Lawson over Stroll. My one was Bortoletto over Stroll. But at the end of the day, I can't see Stroll getting more than 15 points. And I would rather have the safety of Lawson not losing any budget, because if Lance Stroll DNF'd out of that race and I had him -0.6, that then puts my future 4A builds into an issue. So I'm just covering my losses there whilst having Lawson or Bortoletto there. That's why I like the left team.
Fair play. I'm going to hit refresh real fast, just to make sure there's nobody else hanging out. This one's from Luca. All right. Looks like the team on the left, we've got 3 price floor drivers. Team in the middle is Lando, Carlos, Mercedes. Team on the right is Alonso, double Sauber, Mercedes. My instinct's telling me go with the middle team.
Yeah.
Lando with the 2X, I think, could have a huge upside. You've got Alonso, who's surging. Sainz had a fantastic free practice. 2 price floor drivers likely to go up with Mercedes.
I would go for the middle one.
Oh yeah, same here. I'd like to say to Lucas as well. Sorry, yeah. Don't worry about autopilot. I'm thinking way too stingy with my autopilot play here. I'm waiting for the perfect moment that will probably never come. If you do feel like it's the right way to go for it. Autopilot isn't one of the crazier chips. If you screw it up, like it's not going to ruin your season if nothing happens to the autopilot this weekend.
Guys, I think we're going to agree on this question from Sebastian in the chat. Alonso for Hulk with a -10 or keep Hulk? Otherwise, he's got Zach's team.
I would keep Hulk. For the sake of a -10.
I think for the sake of a -10.
Yeah, not for a -10, yeah.
If it was a straight swap, I'd say consider it. For a -10, I'd say keep Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
Well, it all comes down to what we've been saying just all the time now over our mid-season review one and the latest video as well, where it's just like, we've got to start thinking about points. Like, that's also what sort of helped me push to the Aston team, because at the end of the day, like, you can't be taking -10s like willy-nilly like that. Basically, it has to be a -10 for a perfect reason.
I mean, interesting. 3X isn't perfect for it. There is an element of that because you've got 2 clear McLaren drivers. So I guess I get where that comment is, that it's perfect for that. I just think that you might still get a better opportunity in the sprint weekend to use it still. I think McLaren's dominance is quite strong this season. I think that everyone's turning off development. I think that as you get towards the back end of the season, everyone's switching to 2026. We know it's brand new cars, new focus. So I think from what we're seeing, I can't imagine a lot of development for the teams with McLaren locking out both championships, because it doesn't make any sense for them to do it. So I think that this McLaren dominance is going to carry on going all the way to the end of the season. So I think you'll still get an opportunity in the sprint race to see this 1-2 McLaren. Qatar springs to mind as one. I think it'll still be there. I don't think it's going to disappear.
Guys, good question from our friend BZ in the chat. Not much talk about no negative. Should there be?
Depends on that weather, doesn't it? I mean, ultimately, it's one of those where at the moment you say no, but if that weather just moves slightly, then absolutely. But like we said earlier, it's a coastal track. It will change on any point. Yeah, what you've got here probably won't be realistic tomorrow. It could go either way. It could blow in quick and go out, or that.
I just think when you're going no negative, it has to be like by the deadline. It has to be more than 40%. I would
still think Brazil potentially that. Yeah. If I had no negative still sat here, I would still be keeping it for something like that rather than something where it's got the potential for a bit of rain in the morning. Do you know what I mean? Is where we're at.
I'd like to say as well, So first of all, we are 8 likes away from 100 likes.
Oh, come
One
on.
last push, everyone. One last
Oh,
push.
5
And
minutes
also,
to go. Five minutes.
yeah. Also,
That's-
Juicebox has also become a supporter as well.
thank you.
Welcome,
Juice.
It's all
Juicebox.
shooting off.
One of
Um,
us.
Should we answer some of these questions then? Because there might
Let's
be
do
some people desperate. A lot of those teams in mind there looking at it with 5 minutes to go. Lawson for Hulkenberg with a -10 or keep Hulkenberg. Definitely keep Hulkenberg.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't feel Lawson's worth taking a -10 for, to be honest.
Yes, agreed.
I
You have
would
to
like
be
to say
really
also,
desperate for cash
yeah.
for that.
For everyone, make sure refresh your screens. Just everyone double check that your transfers have gone through, so there's no issues anywhere. Because
Well, that was ominous. Hold on.
no. I know. No, I've seen that on Twitter before where people have messaged where they've like, "Oh, I thought I logged in my team. I hadn't."
Oh no, mine is locked in. Harrison's got a good one. McLaren Aston triple. Is it worth a -10 to swap Lance for Alonso? Not sure it's worth a -10. I think points between them isn't going to be enough for -10. I don't think.
I'm sorry, guys. Like, throw your question at the bottom, and I'll as soon as I see it, I'll jump to it. This
I
chat
didn't
is
see it. No.
going faster than my eyes can.
Oh, I see. I've got it. Bortoletto, Sainz, or Lawson. Which one are we picking?
Depends if you want points or cash.
Cash is Bortoletto, isn't it?
Yeah. Second place would be Lawson for cash, but I prefer Bortoletto. Sainz would be for points. Slightly less likely he'll get cash.
Yeah. I think Bortoletto is a good bet for a good budget game.
Sainz versus Stroll.
Oh,
Stroll? Question mark.
I don't know. I think I would say Sainz just as an all-rounder, just because he needs less points to go up in budget. And Williams hasn't looked too bad this weekend. I say not too bad. He looked great in FP3.
I'm not sure I'll pick Williams over Triple Aston.
I was going to say, Zach, good follow-up question.
Yeah,
Williams over Triple Aston?
No.
Good, but not that good.
Yeah.
I think I would say with Williams, we're going to get one of the drivers, aren't we? And we probably are with Aston, let's be honest about it. We're
that's
hoping the McLaren mitigates it.
That's the thing as well. I'm on that thinking as well, where we'll get one of the Astons, one of the Williams, all of them. But the thing is, we've also got to get that with the Ferrari, with the Red Bull, with the Mercedes. So they're all equal teams. And then it's like, okay, cool. Aston opens up so much more budget to bring in Norris, and he brings in those big bucks.
You watch Max come and spoil that papaya party that's going on any minute now.
Right, 4 minutes left. Let's see if we can run through the last few questions here. A lot of just lineup option stuff.
Whoa!
Andrew wants to know. Oh,
sorry. I just refreshed. We're at 116 likes.
Hey, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that.
That's fantastic. Andrew says Piastri, Albon, Sauber versus Norris, Bortoletto, Aston Martin. Give me Norris and Aston Martin all day. Oh, Rebecca says Rebecca, did we miss your lineup? Oh, yes, yours was next. You had Piastri, McLaren, Ferrari, triple McLaren, Aston, Lando, McLaren, Mercedes with Hulkenberg, Sainz, Alonso. This is literally Zach's team in the middle. And I would co-sign it.
Yeah, I think that one.
Feeling it for Aston.
I think the triple McLaren's strong there.
I'm pretty sure we had similar budgets as well, which means you will be able to, if everything goes well, escape back to Russell and Mercedes for Monza. And I think that's the baseline of, if you can do that from Aston, I think it looks fine then.
Yeah, I think second one, Rebecca, would be where my money is. Hopefully not too late for you to lock it in.
We got your back, Rebecca. There we go. Juicebox,
Tommy,
you are the best. Thank you for subscribing and for checking in.
Tommy Twofish says Merritt definitely second constructor. No.
Tommy, it's been crazy. Yeah.
Depends. Depends on a lot. Depends if you can get into the 4 Tier A lineups. It depends if you need the budget from Aston Martin, or if you believe in Aston Martin's free practice performance. So Merck could totally be, but also could totally not be the second constructor. Lots to dive into there. We've got 1 minute left. Just wanted to thank you all for bringing us back out of the break in form.
Yes, thank you.
A ton of people here with some great questions, so thank you. We'll be back for our Monza preview at the usual time and place, and we'll be right back here next Saturday to take all of your questions. Hopefully it's a little less crazy, but I think it's going to be the same because now everyone's going to be in Aston Martin belts trying to figure out where we go from here.
How to get out of it.
I'm gonna have to bring the coffee for this one.
Yeah, how to get out of it because Aston Martin's no good on the straight.
Exactly. Everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for Monza.
Thank you,
Take care, everyone.